Yes. My two little sisters right now are chained up.
They're chained up?
January 14th, 2018. Jordan Turpin's escape exposed one of the most shocking child abuse cases in history. 13 siblings, tortured and imprisoned by their parents for decades in Paris, California. The world watched in horror. Children chained to beds. Malnutrition so severe a 29-year-old weighed just 82 pounds. David and Louise Turpin were sentenced to life in prison. The children were rescued and placed into protective custody. The public breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, these children were safe. But this isn't where the story ends. What happened next shattered any illusion that rescue meant safety. The system designed to protect the most vulnerable would fail them in ways that seem almost impossible to believe. This is the story of what came after the House of Horrors, how those meant to heal became predators, how children who survived one nightmare walked directly into another. Welcome to the House of Hell. Moving 13 severely traumatized individuals into foster care presented an unprecedented challenge. The Turpin children had no understanding of normal behavior. They couldn't recognize abuse because they'd never experienced appropriate treatment. 7 children were placed with a single foster family that specifically requested them. On paper, it seemed perfect. Experienced caregivers with training in trauma cases. But there were warning signs that went unnoticed. The foster family had specifically sought out these high-profile children. While seeming generous, experienced social workers know families who target famous cases often have ulterior motives, financial gain or attention. According to court documents, the foster family began subjecting the children to horrific abuse. Physical violence became routine. Food was denied as punishment. The children were isolated from each other, their only source of comfort. The parallels to their original abuse were devastating. Once again, they were prisoners. Once again, they were hungry. Once again, adults who claimed to care were lying. But this time was different. The children had tasted freedom. They'd met kind police officers. They knew their treatment was wrong. One child found the courage to speak up. The investigation revealed systematic exploitation. The foster parents had targeted the Turpin children for the substantial financial payments that came with their care. They'd seen dollar signs where they should have seen vulnerable human beings. The abuse included physical violence, emotional manipulation, and deliberate withholding of food and medical care. There was also sexual abuse. Children were coached to lie when social workers visited. Perhaps most heartbreaking, the children initially blamed themselves. Years of conditioning had taught them abuse was their fault. Even after being told they were safe, they struggled to understand they were victims again. For the Turpin children, this second betrayal was worse than the first. Their parents had always been abusive. They'd never known different. But these foster parents had presented themselves as rescuers, offered hope, then weaponized it. The psychological impact was devastating. These children had finally begun to trust, finally started believing the world might hold kindness. That trust was shattered completely. When truth came to light, the community was stunned. The investigation began when one Turpin child found strength to report the abuse. After years of being taught that speaking up led to punishment, making that report took extraordinary courage. Law enforcement officers who'd worked the original case found themselves investigating another nightmare involving the same victims. They'd worked so hard to rescue these children, only to watch them fall into new predators' hands. Evidence was overwhelming. Physical signs of abuse were documented. Other children corroborated allegations. Financial records showed foster parents receiving substantial payments for caring for the high-profile Turpin children, payments that motivated their request. This wasn't overwhelmed caregivers. This was calculated exploitation of the most vulnerable victims imaginable. The foster parents were charged with multiple counts of child abuse and endangerment. During trial, prosecutors painted a picture of systematic abuse echoing the children's original trauma. Both foster parents were found guilty and sentenced to significant prison terms. Justice served, but far too late for children who'd suffered under their care. Public reaction was swift and angry. Social media erupted with outrage.
But the question remains, why weren't they removed from the house by county officials much earlier?
Politicians called for investigations and reforms. But for the Turpin children, convictions brought little comfort. The damage was done. Their ability to trust had been shattered not once but twice. Justice felt hollow in face of such preventable suffering. The case exposed fundamental flaws in child welfare systems. The vetting process failed. Background checks weren't sufficient for children with this trauma level. Financial incentives created perverse motivations where predators could profit from vulnerable victims. Oversight failures were critical. Standard check-ins weren't adequate for children conditioned to hide abuse their entire lives. The high-profile nature created additional vulnerabilities. Media attention made them valuable commodities to those seeking fame or financial gain. The systemic changes that followed were minimal. Some additional training, new protocols, but fundamental issues remain largely unchanged. Today, the Turpin children are adults or near adults, scattered across different situations, trying to build lives from trauma fragments. Some have found stability. Others continue struggling with compounded trauma. All carry scars, not just from parents' abuse, but from the system's failure to protect them. Several pursued legal action against Riverside County, seeking accountability for systemic failures. Jordan Turpin has become an advocate for foster care reform, bringing attention to ongoing struggles of children in the system. Financial settlements provided resources for therapy, education, and basic expenses. But money cannot undo lost development, shattered trust, or ongoing psychological impact. Some children have found ways to connect with the world their parents denied them. They're learning to drive, pursuing education, forming relationships, milestones most take for granted. Their resilience is remarkable, but shouldn't have been necessary. The Turpin children's story doesn't have a happy ending. It has a complicated, ongoing reality where survival and healing happen despite systems that should support them, not because of them. Their experience reveals uncomfortable truths about how we treat our most vulnerable children. We rally when stories make headlines, but fail them when cameras stop rolling and real healing work begins. These children survived their parents' abuse through incredible strength and sibling bonds. They survived the foster system's abuse through that same strength, but with trust shattered and faith in adults destroyed. Every day, other children enter foster care systems. All deserve better than systems prioritizing paperwork over protection, creating financial incentives for exploitation, failing to see children as human beings worthy of safety and love. The Turpin children's story isn't over. They're still fighting, still surviving, still trying to build lives worth living. They deserve a system that fights for them with the same determination they've shown fighting for themselves. Until we build that system, more children will find themselves trapped between houses of horrors and houses of hell. If you agree with my take on the foster system issues and want more updates on the Turpin case, comment, like, and please subscribe so you're notified of new videos. Thank you for watching. Be safe.